It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement, the weekly show that keeps you in the know about all things retirement. I'm your host, Trey Bossa, and this week we're talking about why your kids might not want the family dining room table. That's exactly why we've got a team of professionals gathered. Today, the panel includes Danny Goolsby, financial advisor and founding partner of Market Advisory Group; Joshua Sikora, CPA, tax advisor from Market Tax Services; Alex Robinson, estate planning attorney from Eidelman Law Firm; and Mark Benefiel, health insurance advisor from Market Medicare Advisors. Welcome in, everyone. Danny, every generation has different values and tastes, and nowhere is that more obvious than when it's time to pass things along, right?
Yeah, it can come as a real shock when parents discover that their kids don't want the big oak dining table, or they don't want the china cabinet, or even the family vacation home. So today, what we want to use in this episode today is we want to talk about the realities of downsizing, of letting go, and making smarter decisions on what we leave behind. And I don't mean just emotionally, but I also mean financially. So we want to deal with the tangible and the intangible assets or issues that impact the next generation. I recently met with a couple that was trying to downsize after about 40 years in their home, and they were stunned with their children politely declined with some of their heirlooms that they were offered by the parents. So this is a story that we hear quite often. And it gets into sentimentality, or sentimental value doesn't always translate to financial value. And the passing of physical possessions without talking to your heirs can lead to resentment, confusion, and clutter. The Christian Science Monitor actually says that an entire industry has popped up just trying to helping people trying to downsize. Again, that's emotionally and logistically. So let's start talking with Alex about, from a legal standpoint. Alex, when you talk about things that one generation may have accumulated in their adult life and how they may want to try to plan for distribution, let's start with just several little things here and get your feedback on what you've experienced. Let's start with timeshares. What do you find? You know, that old fun thing, timeshares.
Yeah, famously, everyone loves timeshares, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I actually do have clients who do enjoy their timeshare, and they do want to pass it down to the next generation. It is very difficult to do, and there's a lot of hoops that we have to jump through. And so we want to start that early on to make sure that we do everything the correct way, because each timeshare and each company is different in what they want to see and what they want to have in the documents. I've got one that we've been working on it for 6 months, and it's still not complete because I email them, it takes 3 weeks, I don't hear from them, and then finally they come back and they ask one question, and then I answer the question, and then so on and so forth. So timeshares are very tricky assets to transfer, but it can be done. We just need to make sure that we're getting the process started early.
So then let's talk about the next one. And how about potential valuable collections, whether that be of coins, you know, whatever that someone might want to collect, and maybe they have several children or several beneficiaries, can I say it that way? You know, how are those affected sometimes?
It honestly depends. That's the famous lawyer answer. On the family situation. If no one in the family cares about the collection that you have, then we put in the documents that, hey, we need to make sure that we are getting it evaluated by an independent third person that has expertise in whatever this category is. If it's coins, if it's, you know, comic book collections, if it's magic cards, whatever it is that you collect, we are going to find an expert that can truly give you a good sense of what the value of those items are.
So you mentioned magic cards. Are those like magic beans? So
no, I mean it's a card playing game, and it is funny, but there's a card out there that's worth $2 million.
Oh my!
So you know it's one of those things where if you don't tell someone in your family or your financial advisor or your estate planning attorney about the value of your collection, people might not know about it, and you put it up for sale at an estate sale, and then it goes for 35 cents because you think it's junk, you don't realize what the value is, and now all of a sudden your family has lost, you know, tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in value.
And so I'm sure that as an attorney, there are ways that you can stipulate in the plan that you create for people how to pass these assets on. Again, I leave that to you. Let's talk about guns. A lot of times people will have guns, and guns can be one of those tricky things because some people feel about guns one way and some people feel about guns another way. How do you distinguish if Johnny is supposed to get this particular item and Susie was supposed to get this one? How do you distinguish between children or beneficiaries saying, no, mom left that to me, no, mom left that to me? How do you do that?
Well, we have a mechanism for that. It's called the Personal Property Memorandum. And so what we do is we give that to people. It's for them to fill out. We call it doing your homework. But they are required to put down the items if they want specific items to go to specific people on that sheet. So if you have a large gun collection and you just say my 9mm, that's not going to cut it because you probably have several of those. And so you need to say this specific gun goes to this specific person so that the kids aren't fighting over it. The whole point of estate planning is that when you die, your assets pass to the people you care about in the way that you want it to, with the minimum friction involved. And sometimes that means having hard conversations during your lifetime and making sure that you're really understanding what it is that they want and what it is that they don't want sometimes.
So any physical property that has maybe a sentimental value to the parents, if they could say it that way, may not necessarily translate to the inherited beneficiary or the generation. And so what do you do as an attorney, as an estate planning attorney, when, here, I'm going to give you my pop bottle collection. Well, and this child gets my gold coins and this child gets, something else of value. How do you feel, how do you deal with that when one child maybe feels slighted because pop bottles, really? I mean, what's that worth? I'd rather have the gold coins.
Yeah, I mean, there's sentimental value and there is real value, right? And it's hard sometimes to figure out which kid wants what, and that's why you talk to them beforehand. When I was a younger person, I went on a date, and at the end of the date, we went to her grandmother's house, and she was there with her friends or her cousins, and they're all picking out things that they wanted from grandma when she passed. And at the time, that really freaked me out. I thought, this is the weirdest thing ever. And now I see the value in that. They were having conversations during their lifetime about what you want and what you don't want and how you pass that on and make sure that the people that really are interested in something get those items and the people who maybe don't care get something else. And we're all individuals and we have to make sure that the plan that we have matches the individuals that we have. We might think, hey, my kid really is interested in my journal, that's all about my life and what I've done, and they might not care at all. And if you have that conversation, it might hurt, but at least then okay, I'm not going to give it to Steve, I'm going to give it to Kim because she's way more interested in that. And if we're having those conversations, we're doing what we need to do.
We talk so often about this team approach to retirement planning. If you feel like your retirement is missing something, sometimes all it takes to find out is a 15-minute phone call. To set up that 15-minute phone visit, call us at 833-624-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or check out our website at retirementhelp.com. There, you can also watch past episodes or submit a question for us to possibly answer in the future episodes. In the next segment of Eye on Retirement, we turn our attention to taxes. Stay tuned. Hi, and welcome back into Eye on Retirement. Last segment, we talked about leaving things to your kids that they don't want. There's one interesting item you wanted to highlight, right, Danny?
Well, yeah, let's talk about things that maybe your kids don't want. And so let me turn our attention to taxes. There's a nationally recognized CPA. He's a nationally author. His name is Ed Slott. He's on public television a lot. And he has this to say about taxes. He says taxes is whether you're 5 years away from retirement or you're 50 years away from retirement, taxes are probably the biggest thing that people will have missed and not accounted for in their retirement lives. Unlike money lost to maybe a market event, a stock market going up, the stock market going down, money lost to taxes never returns. And so, Joshua, let's talk about taxes. I know it's your favorite subject. Let's talk about taxes. They come in just one size and shape at all. They don't vary at all, do they?
Just like, when Ford made the Model T, right? You can have whatever color you want so long as it was
As long as it's black, right?
That's right. So all taxes are the same. No, absolutely not. And so, beforehand, I kind of talked about a few varieties those taxes come in. And as we kind of start picking through them, let's also remember that while there's these different, let's call them shapes of taxes, they're going to change color from time to time because as we talk about in the intro to the show, there's shifting policies in Washington. And that means taxes are going to change over the course of time. So that's why it's important that as you start looking at these and setting up plans, it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing. There needs to be reoccurring conversations to compensate, to adjust plans as these tax things move.
So let's go through some of these, some of the mini taxes that just come at us, and just kind of rapid fire, if you will, here. A little bit. Tell me, estate tax, or sometimes called the death tax. What is that about?
Yeah, and so this one often confuses people. Think of this like a property tax. We pay property taxes on real estate. We pay it on our vehicles. This is a property tax on the estate once it exceeds a certain threshold. That threshold moves from time to time. Right now, for a married couple, we're on the doorstep of $30 million, 15-ish for singles. So it's a big threshold to get over to have to deal with it. But there can be times that you may want to deal with it, or in terms of picking up that exclusion while it's available.
So some people will be exposed, if you will, to estate taxes. But here's one that we're all exposed to in one form or another, and that's income taxes. Talk about that.
Yeah, so income taxes is what people think of typically when they have to pay taxes. When people pass, income taxes can come into play in different ways, whether that's dealing with inherited retirement accounts that have tax consequences. That account, you may be able to take a little bit out of it over time. You may have to take it out all over 10 years. If poor estate planning is done, you may have to take it out over 5 years. And the kicker is that the person who's setting up the plan isn't the one who has to deal with those income tax consequences. It's going to be those beneficiaries who are often out of the loop.
So today we're talking about things that our inheritors, our beneficiaries may not want to have. So maybe with some planning, instead of leaving them the family fortune or the family collection or the family property ground, we may be leaving them taxes unknowingly and say, hey, that'll be their problem. They can deal with that. Here's another tax. Let's talk about capital gains tax. What's that about?
Yeah, so capital gains is the tax you pay on the appreciation of property, if you want to think about it that way. That could be, you inherited the family vacation home and it's appreciated over time, so there could be taxes to deal with that. It could be stocks, bonds, mutual funds, right? Now, the tax code right now is favorable in that when somebody passes, assuming it's done appropriately, the value of that asset changes from whatever mom and dad bought it for to the fair market value when they pass. But if things aren't done appropriately, or you employ the wrong tool at the wrong time, you could miss out on that. It's called a step up in basis, and then kiddos get a bigger tax bill than was planned.
So then that would be a coordination between maybe the tax professional yourself and maybe the estate planning professional, Alex, and the advisor for that moment, making sure that assets don't get liquidated before they get the best tax benefit. If they do get liquidated before at the wrong time, they may produce a tax benefit.
That's right. Or if other tools are coming into play, maybe some different types of trust instruments, making sure that everybody understands the consequences of the decisions that are being pursued.
So let's talk about a couple more here really quick. So what's we heard sometime in the past about something called the alternative minimum tax, and I know that's a mouthful. And I know with the Tax Act, Jobs Act and Tax Cuts of 2017, that's no longer as many affected a lot of people, but that may be rearing its head again.
Yeah, so this is a great example of the fact that taxes change over time. Right now, not many people are dealing with alternative minimum tax, or it's also called AMT. So not many people deal with that right now. However, as things change, right now we're dealing with upcoming tax changes, and they're going to keep changing. And so AMT is one of those things we need to watch out for to make sure that decisions that are being made today aren't going to make people pay, your beneficiaries, the people you really like, make them pay big taxes later on.
And then lastly, let's talk about something that the beneficiary or the inheritors may be, we're talking about passing assets down of one thing or passing things down. What are the reporting requirements maybe for some people who inherit their parents or someone else's estate?
There could be a variety of different reporting requirements. It could be something as simple. If all the plans are laid out and all the ducks in a row, there could be nothing that needs to be done aside from the death certificates and letting people know that mom and dad passed. There could be estate tax returns that need to be dealt with. There could be trust tax returns that need to be dealt with. There could be trust accounting that needs to be done to let the beneficiaries know what's going on inside the trust before you file that trust tax return. And a lot of people aren't prepared for that obligation or know how to handle it.
I think Albert Einstein said that the hardest thing for him to understand was the American tax code. And so the things that we want to make sure that we do is pass things on to the next generation that are things that they want, but also things that they don't want. We want to make sure that that happens.
Are you frustrated when it comes to getting answers to your retirement questions? Are you anxious you could be missing something in retirement? Well, you don't have to be. And sometimes all it takes to alleviate that anxiety is a 15-minute introductory phone call with one of our advisors. To set up that 15-minute phone visit, call us at 833-624-REPORT, or that's 833-624-7376. And check out our website at retirementhelp.com. There, you can also watch past episodes or submit a question for us to possibly answer in a future episode. In the next segment of Eye on Retirement, we focus on healthcare. Stay tuned. Hi, and welcome back to Eye on Retirement. Danny, one thing I think people inherit from their parents more often than anything else is healthcare stress.
Yeah, we hear that all the time when we're sitting and talking with someone in the conference room that that some of the things that they have experienced that are they're bringing to their attention is because they've experienced it settling their parents' estate. They've watched their parents go through certain things. So let's talk about some of those healthcare issues, Mark, that people experience that maybe they, because they've watched a parent go through that. Let's go through several of these, kind of like we've done in the previous segment. So let's talk about someone's medical condition or history. Are those things that we want to share with the next generation? And would that help?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually, from a personal experience, dealing with this just right now. My parents are both 85, and I was off for several days last week with my mother having some surgery, which brought up a lot of questions, which was, what are some of those inherent passed down medical history issues that I might be facing, in the future? What is that medical history of my parents? She has some very specific inherited kidney problems, et cetera. So you need to know what those medical conditions are. You need to understand what the history is, how they may apply to you in the future, but also as you're dealing with your parents as they age, what things could you be helping them or assisting with, especially as they age and they may need some help making some of those decisions.
So let's take that a little bit further and talk about medications or treatments there, because how can understanding your parents' situation and their medications, their history, their treatments, maybe help you at the time of their passing and through a distribution process?
Mm-hmm. Well, from those medications and treatments, oftentimes, especially when you go about treatments, especially as we end of life, we talk a lot, we've heard here before, how much money oftentimes is spent in those end-of-life situations and decisions, and there could be a number of debts that are still needed to be settled. You need to be aware of what they are, because I don't know if you've noticed, but the billing situation is just because you have a treatment now, that billing, especially if you're working through Medicare or Medicare supplement, that may be months before any billing actually shows up. So those are things that may have to be dealt with and still and closed and settled up from an estate standpoint. Medications, you need to know where those medications are. If you're selling things in the home, I know my father has several issues, and he orders medications 90 days at a time. There could be large caches, if you will, of medications at different parts of the house, and that's not safe, especially if you have grandkids running around the house or people coming home from estate sales. And so you definitely need to know where the medications are, what those treatments have been, whether those have been settled, and those are all issues that can be very burdensome for the survivors.
One of the things that we find here at Market Advisor Group is we have the benefit or the blessing, if you will, of sitting around the table of these different disciplines. And so, Mark, as a Medicare professional, a lot of times you'll run into people and they may not have their healthcare powers in place. Mm-hmm. And so, well, you're not an attorney. Talk about healthcare powers that when you see them that they're not there. How do you address that with folks?
That is definitely one of the things that we'll talk about, especially as maybe one spouse or the other is aging. Are the proper powers of attorney in place so decisions could be made if you need to make them on short notice, or maybe the one of the spouses or one of the parents is incapacitated and can't make the decisions, but decisions need to be made. It becomes very cumbersome when you're in the hospital and there's no power of attorneys. There's nobody that's able to make those decisions. And if maybe you're a survivor and you have the one parent left, who's going to help? Who's going to make those decisions? That brings up another topic we probably talk about later, which is kind of end of life decisions. But how are those decisions made, and how are those communicated quickly to the medical personnel who may need to have answers fast? So are those documents, where they're not going to just take your word for it, they're going to want to see those documents. So do you have copies of the documents? Where are they? Can they be accessed quickly? All those things are questions that we find, especially when you have like surviving spouses, sometimes that they're struggling with, because they don't even know or they didn't even realize they need to have those types of documents, and it definitely can become very burdensome on the children as well, adult children.
Well, and let's cover that. End of life preferences here. Just so you brought that up, how do you deal with that when you're sitting talking with someone about their health care? How's that conversation evolve?
Well, because we have an all-encompassing agency here, I think that we probably have a tendency, with our Medicare department, to talk about some of those things that maybe other Medicare professionals, not with our associated with the company, would have. We may be asking them if they have end-of-life preferences, have they done any estate planning, do they have the powers of attorneys that will allow people to make those decisions, and have they sat down with a estate planning attorney such as Alex or the other competent professionals to make those decisions. And so we want to make sure that they make those referrals and can take care of them.
Market Advisory Group is not just one thing. We have financial planners, tax advisors, estate planning attorneys, Medicare advisors, and now life insurance specialists, all in the same building to get you answers in real time. All it takes is a 15-minute introductory phone call to see if Market Advisory Group is the right team for you. If you'd like to set up that 15-minute introductory phone call, reach out right now at 833-624-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or do so at our website, retirementhelp.com. You can also search Eye on Retirement on YouTube, where we upload all past episodes for you to watch on demand. That's all the time we have for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Trey Bossa, along with the entire panel, reminding you that we're here to keep an eye on retirement.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client and prospect names mentioned on this show have been changed to protect the identities of the individuals discussed. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Edelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.